to Colleen. Did she tell you?
She did, because she was
Called
going
her
up
and
to
like,
meet
tell
my,
her I said hello.
she was going up to get my kids out of the wedding.
How was it?
It was beautiful.
Yeah. Now, where was it again?
They got married at the waterfront overlooking Saratoga Lake and
Okay.
the very small, very intimate Saratoga Winery.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
It
Nice.
was very nice.
Good.
Yeah. Joe.
Gusta and Naomi. Gusta and Naomi.
There's a meeting happening over here.
Are we ready?
Meeting.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order our business meeting for the Shenendehowa Central School District. Before we do anything, I would start off with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you could please remain standing, we'd like to commemorate also the 17th anniversary of September 11th. Please pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. Please take your seat.
Don't forget about the executive session.
Some announcements we want to bring to your attention. We did hold an executive session starting at 6 to discuss some charges pursuant to Education Law 3020A and also discuss some collective bargaining issues. Also, one announcement, Mr. Gilbert is not here today. Tonight he had some work business that took him away from us. At this point, we'd like to adopt an agenda. Can I have a motion, please? Christina first, Deanna second. All in favor? We'll adopt the agenda. At this point, we'll open up the Board of Education member comments. So we'll start off with Gustav. Go ahead, please.
I just want to acknowledge the start of school last week was my first experience with having a walkthrough of all the schools. And then it was a really lovely experience and very impressive how this place runs like a well-oiled machine and how happy all the kids were on the first day. It was really great to see. So it was a real pleasure to be a part of that.
I echo Gusta's comments. That's fun. And by the end, I heard Dr. Robinson said, now you got to go home and take 2 ibuprofen, 2 Tylenol, get on the water, and then you'll be good. And it's true. I did also learn that we did not achieve our 7-mile goal, but we were 5 miles in walking. Yeah, so it's a daunting task, and we don't even walk all the schools. I mean, we go to all of them and we cover as much as we can, but it's a long day, but it's certainly worth every minute of the time. I just also want to say it's been a really busy summer. If anybody was on this campus at all during the summer, you saw that. It was impressive how much it came together for the opening, especially at High School East. I know there was a lot of angst because of it working right up to it, but our people really pulled it off, Augie and team, and so kudos to them. Also kudos for the teachers that were able to also get in there and get ready with so little time, but they did it. They made it happen. So that was exciting. I also really appreciate Superintendent's Day. I thought that was a ton of fun, and I heard from one teacher that that's the way it used to be. So I'm expecting more dancing in the future. But it was truly like a pep rally, and everyone loved it. Also, I really appreciate there was one seminar I was able to attend. It was on mental health and wellness, and that was about an hour and a half. That was very good. I appreciate it, there was 2 ladies from the New York Mental Health Association present for that. They shared information, guidance, and I just thought it was well done and exciting to see that the initiative is moving forward. Also, this will be the last point, I promise. It was also very exciting to be part of Carrigan and Aranda's 50th anniversary. The ribbon cutting was probably the highlight for both schools, as they all had their different ways of doing it, but it was a ton of fun. I'm so happy that I was part of that, and I look forward celebrating for the next year. And so I yield to Christina.
And of course, whenever I follow Mrs. Miller and Mrs. Huffman, I can just check all of my notes and my comments. But ditto to that. Welcome back, everyone. We're really excited, as we said, to see the excitement of our staff and our children, and it's just wonderful. And look forward, of course, as always, as we all partner together to make sure we continue to provide an engagement and enriching environment for our students and families. And then just one other thing then, just congratulations to Al Carib and our transportation department. They are considered in the annual top 100 bus fleets in the School Bus Fleet magazine. They ranked 97th, and that's based on size and efficiency. So once again, another kudos to the Shen district, but to transportation as well. And I know it's always a challenge for them with the many miles they travel, many bus routes, and keeping our kids safe. So, and also, if you noticed recently on the news, they showed a video of a child not in our district. Sorry, am I too close?
Yeah,
Sorry.
not sure if it's that or what.
It's just
Keep
me.
going.
It's my magnetic personality. So on that note, sorry, I'm gonna make a joke. If you recently saw, it wasn't from our district or even a local district, but there was a video showing about school bus safety where someone had on their phone where this child was almost hit by a car. The bus was stopped, had the stop sign out, the flashing lights in the car, and the child was just missed by inches. And just reminding everyone again, and I know our transportation department is always, watching out for that and watching to make sure traffic is fully stopped before they allow our kids to cross the streets. But all of us, we have to remember always to make sure we watch out for the buses and the kids, because seconds away as that child was almost, hit by a car. So again, that's all I have. And again, looking forward to a great new school year.
Go ahead.
During the last meeting, I was doing a lot of coughing to the point where it seemed like I was just going to turn inside out, and I was foo-fooing it. It's nothing. Well, it turned out I had pneumonia. So I haven't been around for the last couple of weeks.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks so much.
You're still healthy, aren't you? I didn't know, obviously. I feel bad because I always enjoy going to the orientation of the Superintendent's Conference Day, because Dr. Robinson always gives an inspiring speech, and he makes everybody know that they are a valued part of a team, and that the outcome of those kids walking across the stage isn't the result of the last 3 years or the last 6, but all 13 years of those kids being in the school system. And I think it makes a great deal of difference when you start the school year on a positive note. It sounds unbelievable, but that has not always been my experience. When I was teaching, I actually sat in one of these things where the superintendent spoke to the faculty, and for whatever reason he said, sooner or later all of you are going to leave, and when you leave, we're going to hire somebody better than you are. Oh, wow. So that's the low end. Dr. Robinson and what we do at Shen is high end, and we can be grateful that we have that kind of an approach to things.
Thanks, Gary. Dr. Robinson, all I'm going to say is you rocked it, but more importantly, the staff that I saw dancing on the stage rocked it. Dr. Wood, I think you have your new calling. That's all I'm going to say. There's just 2 announcements I wanted to make. Karen's Kids, the fundraiser this year, as we always do, we've always done a golf, Brad has always done a golf tournament at Eagle Crest in honor of his wife that was an Arajan teacher and passed away. This year, they're not doing the golf piece of it, but they are doing just a silent and a Chinese auction at the establishment. So that's on September 29th, which is a Saturday. It will be at Eagle Crest Golf Club from 2 to 6. There will be food available, and all proceeds are going to go back. And he always gives back to the backpack program. He gives back to Arajan, and he does other things. I've seen him give back to Coda Middle School and other initiatives. So we thank him for all the time he puts into that and the give back that he does in honor of his wife, Karen. The other piece I wanted to say too is that the Education Foundation, Shenendehowa Education Foundation, we are off to a blazing start under the chair of Kathy Kalish. It will be our new chair, vice chair is Bill Casey, and Kathy just sent out numerous committees, and committees are set, so it's very good. And Gusta and I will be we're doing the fundraiser, and therefore we'll be working on the gala. So I'm excited to do that and all the different things that we're doing. The fundraiser, not a fundraiser, a fundraiser. And that's what we are doing. So, yeah, so that's it.
Okay, thank you. I'll use this. I want to say thanks for a great start. We continue to do very well on the starts of each school. Far less comments back in a negative context, and I think we had an amazing summer in terms of 2 years of construction work compressed into one during a time of a lot of hot weather, hot roofs, a lot of rain, and just down to the wire in terms of getting the buildings ready. We appreciate the patience of students. We couldn't do an ideal orientation in the high school, but I think they're up and running and working fine. Tonight presents an opportunity to really hone our ability to communicate in the public with these forums. I'd like to bring it to the attention of the board. We've really gone through 3 of these. One several years ago, after some controversial topics, we felt we just needed to communicate better. And that was a unique forum in that it was pretty much an hour before the meeting. Board members around the table shared their perspective and thoughts, and I think it helped us to crystallize in the public where we wanted to go with that, just how to communicate better. The second one occurred almost a year ago, and the topic was mental health. Different type of format. A lot of the content was presented by the district on where we were going, and we heard feedback from the community participating, and then board members got to interact as well. And the third one occurred in the spring, and then again, a third type of format, and this was much longer, 2 hours plus. And that's when the district, as well as our guests from the Saratoga Police Force, explained to the public in a larger venue where things were going with school safety. The public, again, allowed to ask questions, as well as board members really interjecting at key points. So what I want to bring to everybody's attention is that there are different ways to have this type of communication in the public, and that's one of the things that we'll figure out as we progress through this, is that we really want to get board members to fully communicate what are the priorities, what's worth an hour plus of the community's time, our time, to understand what we think should be our next steps in that arena. For mental health, excited to see 2 very distinct goals within our district goals, and that tells me the district is working towards presenting things that we'll see throughout the year. Regarding school safety, I think we've done very well in making further progress here. I think there's always going to be some comments back from the public, but if you look at the total amount of resources we're putting in, we are resourcing it. We have these 2 SROs. We're always looking at ways to improve here, and I think we're going to continue that. So I think it's very important that we continue that conversation. That's it for me. At this point, we'll turn to public comments. Let's turn to our students. If you can come on up here, I'll go through the standard script. But this is an opportunity for the public to address the Board of Education. Are there any residents in attendance? You can follow the students. If so, please complete the comment form. The board will not address specific comments, but ask for your name and address in the event follow-up as necessary. We remind residents that the public comment portion is only one item on a long agenda. We therefore ask each speaker be succinct and the remarks be limited to 2 or 3 minutes. Come on up, please. We'd also expect residents speak in a respectful and courteous manner so as to model proper civility and decorum for our students. Residents may also contact the board by email at boe@shenendehowa.org. All questions come to the Office of Public Information Officer and are shared with the board and our superintendent as appropriate. Policy questions and concerns are typically addressed by the board president. Operational questions are typically addressed by superintendent and our designee. So at this point, we'll turn over to our new students. Go ahead, please.
All right, so on behalf of SFA Senate, I'll be reporting on some of the activities we've been doing. First of all, for the first time in 3 years, we're bringing back the homecoming dance. And it'll be held on October 20th in the high school. It's a Saturday. And the pep rally, which is held every year, is going to be on the day of homecoming, September 28th. And we're very excited for it to be a big success. We're getting new merch and swag, so we're going to be making lots of students happy. We're also focusing on outreach this year. We're trying to get new or more faculty and administration members into the Senate, making it truly diverse as it's supposed to be. Would you like to add something? Yeah. We are tremendously excited to working with the Board of Education for the new school year.
So just can you remind us names again, because we have a new board member here.
Of course, I'm Jing.
I'm Miranda.
We're both seniors.
Congratulations, thank you,
Yeah,
ladies.
and welcome to
Appreciate
you
it.
too.
Thank you.
Very much.
At this point, are there any residents that would like to speak up? Okay, I don't see any, and now let's turn over to Superintendent's report and Dr. Robinson.
So I won't necessarily have a specific report other than, one, say thank you very much to board members who were present physically and in spirit. Mr. DeLallo, appreciate your thoughtfulness on the opening day. And two, to again, reiterate a lot of kudos. Sometimes people coming back after vacation don't have the full appreciation of what happened while they were gone. And certainly for high school folks, teachers and students alike, coming in on September 4th, if you would have came in on September 3rd, you'd have think September 4th would never happen. And I share that because that perspective is so important for people to realize that. And literally that weekend, we had people working 17-hour shifts to make sure that we initially thought that we just want to have spaces look clean, but we went from clean to, okay, we want spaces to look as if they were never interfered with. So that's a lot to be said, and even today, you know, despite all the effort, we still had a couple leaks in high school. Love that when you put on a brand new roof and it still leaks. And so part of this comment is that I think that patience is always something that we ask people to have, recognizing the intent is never to create a situation that's not ideal. That's what we shoot for, the ideal conditions. So we certainly appreciate that. The rollout of Chromebooks at the high school was major undertaking. I mean, several thousand Chromebooks were rolled out to students. I saw a stat, I think this past weekend, Mr. McDermott sent something out, over 5,300 kids had used their Chromebooks over the course of, kids accessing it, getting familiar with it. So pretty impressive in one sense, but we also know that there are challenges still to come in terms of how we really integrate it within classroom settings and make sure that's a useful device for our students and teachers alike. So a lot of excitement with that because it's more than just a device. It's fundamental to changing how we create much more engaging learning experiences for kids. So we're pretty excited about the possibility that brings moving forward as well. And just an observation I made at Superintendent's Conference Day, I think is also important in terms of context and contrast. And this is always amazing to me when you think about the two young ladies here who just mentioned their seniors class of 2019, and we just brought in the class of 2031. So when you think about that, it's kind of like exactly your reaction, oh my God. And she's young, just think about the rest of us. So I say that because that's the beauty of education, and that's the beauty of what we try to do every day. And so yes, while individual issues are important, always try to put them in a larger context. And remember the larger context of what we're trying to achieve as a part of the system. So opening day to me is more than that. It's beyond just simply having spaces ready. It's about how do we then position ourselves physically, mentally, otherwise, to provide this great experience that spans essentially, I'm sure young people probably think 2 generations, but they're all a part of the same generation when you really think about this. So pretty impressive. So we're off to a good start, and as Mr. Karam, transportation director, mentioned to me today, the day 1 was awful, day 2 was a little bit better, day 3 we were normalized, and that's the intention. That day 1, no one knows what bus they're supposed to catch, no one knows what time they're supposed to catch the bus. Day 2, half of them got on the wrong bus. Day 3, everyone was in a situation, and I think that's how the system works, and it should work all the time, but we go to the very positive way as we move forward. So thank you for your support as a board. Don't want to take it lightly that you committed the time to do the walkthrough. I think we spent 5-6 hours walking in buildings, and your presence is appreciated. I had so many people come back and tell me, oh my God, I'm glad board members came in and did that. For some people who've seen it for the first time, they think it's our first time doing it. Like, oh my God, you're going to do that every year? Yeah, we've been doing this every year. And every year we try to make sure we have comfortable shoes, because it's a great way to see the district on your feet by walking place to place. So we're pretty excited about that as well. Do you want me to continue, Bob, or you want to time into the goals piece? So we have a couple updates that we'll do for the board as we move forward. I know you wanted to talk about some of the board potential initiatives.
Yeah, this would be a time, I think, for us to talk around the table related to future items this year to bring up in a forum type event. And how we do it, we're kind of wide open, as I mentioned when we started. That is something we don't need to finalize now. More importantly, we just want to come up with really two strong topics that are wide and deep in terms of how it impacts the community and ourselves. So I'll just start off, and then as I walk through the list, and then I'll turn it over to board members to provide their comments and share their perspective. One that I think came up last year during the campaign, volunteerism, and I've heard some board members really feel this is something we haven't gone into, and it affects a lot of people. How are we working with the newer generation of parents in terms of communicating with them? Are we encountering situations, for example, where there's maybe inequity between different volunteer organizations? How do we continue to create the lifeblood of initiative that comes through our parent volunteers? And that's something that we really haven't talked about in years, and it may be worth bringing in. Second one would be preparing students for non-college careers. This was the topic from last year that got preempted by school safety. I think our feeling is that we spent a lot of time talking about preparing students for college, and we tend to overlook that a lot of students aren't taking that path and are perfectly happy, and often this might be a better path for them, or an appropriate path. People get to choose in America what path you want to take, and you shouldn't hold anything back from them. Next one is full day K, but in that case, we probably have talked about that and may have some future presentations that'll help guide us. Fourth topic is redistricting. That's something that is always recurring. As Gary pointed out, once we brought Shattuck-on online as a school, that allowed us to really go through a major redistricting effort. And when that was finished, one of the comments was, well, in about 8 or 9 years, this will resurface, and we're now at that point. So I think that's something that is on our radar screen, so to speak. Fifth one is potential land acquisition. Now, what we believe is in January, we may have the opportunity to start those discussions, and that may be probably the point when something new could come forward. School safety, I think that one we have talked through and voted on, and we pretty much have a sound plan to execute what we have voted on. One that came up in the retreat, drug use and the emergence of vaping. I think that's something that I haven't heard this year. It has not been a topic this year, but it was a very vocal topic last year. And the last one, I think, Gary, you had something you brought up this last week, practices in terms of how we hire, and that one of the things we used to do was to have a mentorship program. And that's something that maybe we, either as a forum or maybe just as something to bring to at a later point we could do. But anyway, those are some of the topics. We'd like to hear from board members what your thoughts are. I'd like to hear from each one of you where you think these fit in your list of priorities. Go ahead,
If I
Christine.
may, one of the ones that I feel strongly that we should be looking at is substance use, drugs and alcohol addiction, especially vaping is one, but also, as we know with the different opioid epidemics, and a lot of kids also using marijuana in place of that because it's getting harder and harder to get some of the opioids as in the past. Also, with that said, too, we want to really watch closely to the governor's, efforts to legalize recreational marijuana for adults. But just if that does get passed, what kind of message does that send to youth as well, saying that, it's a safe thing where, we know that it's addictive property, so I don't want to go into a political statement, but those are things that we really should be messaging as well to our students. But how do we help families, parents, staff, working with our kids on that? But also with vaping, it's not just, vaping just for smoking, but as we know, liquid marijuana, all those different things that kids can get and how it can be contaminated. And I just think kids just are so still naive to that. What goes on, and working at an organization where we see addiction and everything else, we see more and more adolescents coming in for addiction. So I just think that's one of our ones that we should be looking at and, asking for input from others on what they see or what they feel we need to do in supporting, just like we have supports for mental health, looking at other opportunities or services that we can support our students that may be going down that path.
Anything from other board members?
I agree. No, actually, I was going to say, my top choice is also vaping. I did go to a presentation last year, but because, as I've shared with the board, there were so many events going on throughout the district. I think there were 12 people in the room. But it was sobering for me. I went home and asked a lot of questions. I thought it was very good. And I do think that we would get a lot of interested parents. So a lot of people have questions about, what is the district doing? What could parents be doing? I think it'd be a good exchange. Some of these others, I think they're important. Well, let me start with volunteerism. I absolutely think that's a very important piece. But I also wanted to add that it's more than just the parents. I mean, there's also these groups that work with the district, like the captain, to bring services to the district that alleviate. I shouldn't say alleviate the responsibility, but they're working together collaboratively with the district to serve and help kids. So I don't think that, and maybe something that would recognize these, give different groups an opportunity to come and say what they're doing. I think people would want to hear it, and appreciate what they're doing for not only the kids, but for the greater Shen community and the community at large. The non-college careers, I think that's really important. I almost feel like that would be a good, we have these college nights, but parents have all these questions. They only have so much time to present. So that is a big topic. I think maybe let's start with district presentation to explain what we have, like what we do in board meetings, and then go from there. But it's because I'm in the thick of it right now too with a senior. So, and now that I'm looking at it very differently than I did even 2 years ago or a year ago. Okay. So that I see as a very important big area. And with the redistricting and the land use, I feel like what would be best is timing that after the Futures Committee doesn't. When is their next meeting? Do you know yet?
We haven't set it up.
So for some of these, I think they hinge on that one.
Yeah.
So the full day kindergarten, I hate to actually even use that term when we were talking about how we reference this. This one is one that is ongoing, and I don't know that. And somebody can jump in and correct me, or just share their perspective. I'm not sure if what would come from a forum, because I feel like we have much work to do as far as organizing information, making sure that we have our ducks in a row, so to speak.
We have slated time in April.
So in the April meeting?
Yeah, Oliver may know more, may want to speak about it, but it is something we think in April we probably would be presenting something newer, a more fresher update to everybody.
And I also feel that one could also piggyback with the alternate day discussion, alternate scheduling, yes. I think I covered them all. School safety I feel like is ongoing.
Okay.
And the forum was very good, I felt. But just to make sure that we're covering important topics. Like I said, my number one is the vaping. I really feel with the problems with fentanyl, and that it's really more than just the addiction from nicotine. It's more than even this marijuana. The different things, the different substances that can be in it. So that one, I just feel pretty passionate about that. There needs to be an effort to.
I'm trying to kind of blend both of your comments, and one of the things that you brought up was the things that parents are sort of missing. Do you think that is a key?
It was enlightening for me.
Gusta, you maybe have some comments?
I think it would be really helpful for us to offer the community, our community, kind of like a show and tell, what it looks like. Some parents don't know what a Juul is. Some parents don't know what the vape looks like. I think it would be beneficial for us to offer that, because people don't always know where to go. People don't always know where to turn. Yeah, you can look stuff up, but I think it would be very beneficial to us to educate our families if we could.
Okay.
And also that the vaping and mental health, the substance abuse and mental health is very related. And I think that it's, you know, if we can, you know, parents think it's okay to vape, but what are they vaping? So if they're vaping, you know, if they're getting high, you know, one thing leads to another. And it's important that if you have a person who is a little bit leaning in the depressed department, that you have a potential problem on your hands. You know, if kids are anxious and they're using drugs to kind of deal with their anxiety and they're coming to school and they're not really functioning, we need to educate people.
Okay.
And just if I can piggyback on that, I don't think it hurts to, you know, invite some of the students, share some of their perspectives. You know, I know my son shared, he goes, Mom, you know, it's at the bathrooms and it's this and that, and, you know, it's sort of, again, a parent naivety thinking, you know, it happens, but when you say it becomes almost the norm. But in finding out from these students, you know, if someone has in the past and they want or willing to share, this is why I did it. I don't like it now and I'm not doing it, but I did it because, like you said, I was anxious, and it will stem to other issues that these kids might have where our mental health services, like you said, can couple with that and provide those supports so they aren't heading down a road of just trying to feel the norm.
We can't turn a blind eye to that. That's
Exactly,
my
I
feeling.
agree with you.
Darby, anything you want to, go ahead.
Yeah, you said you wanted the student perspective. I'm part of Science Honor Society. Last year we had a discussion on vaping and stuff like this, and I think the biggest thing is that kids just don't think it's bad for you. Like they honestly just, they don't, and they, here's the thing, I just took health this past summer. I took it in 8th grade. We've all heard this. Drugs are bad for you. We all know it. It's a matter of whether or not you care, because every single student knows that they're bad for you, at least at my age in the high school. They know what they do to your body, but a lot of the problem with a lot of these kids, I feel like, is just apathy. Like they honestly don't care what kind of effect these drugs have on their body. Like it's not even like peer pressure, even like, I don't even know if it's mental health sometimes. I feel like they just don't care. And a lot of times it's just they're bored or they feel like it's a cool thing to do, which disgusts me, but I think it's taking, I don't know if it's taking the health approach sometimes, because we've all heard it. We've all seen, like, I mean, look at cigarettes, like look at the use of cigarettes in the 50s versus the use of cigarettes now. We don't know the long-term effects of nicotine smoking through the Juul. So these kids aren't getting the scare effect yet, like you get with like the pig's lungs that they show you in 5th grade from smoking. So I don't know if necessarily going with the medical route is the right way, simply because we can't verify that and like show the kids what really happens. But you know,
And like you said, I don't know that they're really open to the medical route, but I think that parents need to be made aware of what this stuff can do, or what
Gateway.
Yeah, it's a gateway.
gateway, but also that they can
Absolutely.
put this in there, that's an option.
Yep.
You know, or that's
not
this
regulated.
thing that you think is your, you know, flash drive is actually, you know, your kid smoking through it.
Okay.
So I think that that's our responsibility, frankly.
Go ahead. Gary?
Listening to the conversation and to Bob's list that was compiled, it seems like there are some overarching issues that were, you know, for the district as a whole. But there are also probably, I would say almost certainly, issues that are more associated with different grade levels. And I don't mean first, second, third, but, you know, elementary, middle school, high school. And I think these forums, rather than strictly limiting ourselves to those overarching things, although there may be plenty to do, we might be better served if we would try to address some of those clumps of concerns, elementary, middle school. Parents, I'm sure, based on the grades that their kids are in, have different areas of concern, different areas of interest, and perhaps we need to try to identify those. Oftentimes, I think that the concerns come simply because they don't have information with what we're actually doing. So it's a two-way street. It gives us an opportunity to inform parents and allay their fears at the same time. that we get information that'll allow us to do our job better. And I'm trying to think of the vehicle by which we would, garner those topics. And we have partnership teams in each school. We have PTAs in each of those schools. I'm pretty certain that if we went to either or both of those existing organizations, that they could be a source of information that we could then use to decide what we're actually going to try to do. I know we already have the community forums. I'm not talking about that. Those are just issues that pop up and so forth. But something that we'd make more of a major effort on, I think that would be warranted.
So go back to the PTA units that we're representing and ask, what would you like to hear? What would you like to see, explain, what's been done in the past, and then for this year, say we're looking to schedule a fall and spring forum. Okay. I think that's a great idea.
That, and you can always survey. We always do a survey monkey overarching as well. It's going to get you the same result on a bigger scale. Out of the list that you said, Bob, I go back to Gary had brought this up before too, that we're talking the college career route, and that's what we always talk about. Dr. Robinson, we get these kids through their senior year, and even in our speeches we talk about the culmination of their high school career heading that way. But I tell you, I can't even get an electrician into my house. So I think that is that is key. I think we do need to look at these other avenues for these students that do not choose the college route. And even if some kids are going to 2-year, some kids are going vo-tech. And I tell you, they come out, like I said, with electrician, go get a business degree, 2-year business degree. They might even making more than somebody that spent 4 years in college, went and got their MA, maybe a doctor, and they're paying their debt back. So I think that's a great forum to have, and we can certainly pull from our resources at school, or counselors and others to start the conversation and see what else we can add to that. The second piece is I do agree with the mental health and substance abuse, because it all lends into the other avenues. This is where we talk about school safety. Some of these kids were depressed, right? They were anxious, they were bullied, they were this, they were that. It all goes back to the mental health status, which would lend into their self-medication. So again, I would also agree with the mental health and substance abuse.
Okay. More comments?
Stevenson made a great comment on the whole forum, not forum, what was it, the college, not the college, but the opportunities for kids who aren't going to college, right? Because I know several students in my grade and the grade above me who are not considering that path, which is totally fine, perfectly acceptable, it's their choice, and they want to go down maybe like go into trade, or like a trade job, like an electrician or a plumber, which is perfectly acceptable. I just think that it's a really good idea if we open that conversation up, because it's really hard, especially now, to be like respected if you want to say, I don't want to go to college, I want to go into a different line of work, like I want to start work right away. And just giving college options, maybe sometimes these kids can't afford college, maybe sometimes it's just not their passion, they don't just want to keep studying night and day. And to open that avenue, I think, especially for a bunch of students who don't have it opened up and may struggle even to find that pathway, that might be what is deterring them from pursuing like a trade career or something that they really feel is better suited to their skills. They're much more hands-on than they are anything else. So I think that would be an excellent idea, at least coming from my perspective. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, I'll try to summarize this. Very clear. I think almost every board member brought up the substance abuse in various shapes and forms. What I think Gary brought up would be a venue that could exercise some volunteerism by reaching out to the partnership teams. And as members on each school has a partnership team, I think that's one of the missing pieces of volunteerism. So why not exercise it, trying to work with your respective partnership team on, how do you draw their thoughts into this? How would they make this better? I think that would give us more perspective on maybe a future forum along volunteerism. So we're kind of addressing that as sort of a mechanism to pursue the highest priority that's come across, which is the substance abuse. And then that would allow us, I think there are a lot of other comments, probably the second place would be the career readiness, or pursuing a career versus college. And so I think I'll take all the comments and maybe look at the video and just kind of present that back. And does anybody object with that type of approach? I don't see any objection. Okay. So I think we're done on that part of the meeting. So I'll turn it back to Dr. Robinson and the district.
Good job, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Preston. So we have two updates, and we won't tarry too long. First update is Mr. Mayor will come forward, and we collect a lot of data, and we have data at different places, and so the point of doing this is to show the board the wide variety of data sets that we collect, not necessarily to walk through them, but to show you these data sets that we have on our dashboard, because we collect data on a lot of different things, and different people use it for different reasons, but certainly I think as a board, just an awareness piece.
I've done a couple of things since you received your copies of it. So we're going to go with what we're referring to as the summer one, which starts July 1st. So what we've done is we've added some of the information from the prior year on there, so it doesn't start off as empty. But that will change the end of the month. By mid-October, the new information will be in there for September for enrollment, portal usage, attendance, those kind of things, which are not in there now. So the dashboard collects a, where's the clicker for it now? Are you see? Oh, it's just going to go.
Yeah, it's going to scroll.
Oh, okay. So the district dashboard collects a lot of data. Mentioned attendance, enrollment, there's portal usage, and then we break it down by the three schools. So you have the high school level, middle school, and the elementary school. High school has the most reportable data because it has the most reportable data sets. So you can see just by looking at that, there's a high school completers, which is your graduation report, your non-completers, post-secondary plans, those are all part of the reporting the school district has to send back to New York State. Then you have your Regents results, your AP exam results, PSAT information, and then the achievement list. When you go to the middle school, you'll have the 3 through 8 test results. You'll have achievement lists for the 3 grade levels. And then when you get to the elementary school, currently the only thing that's available in there from that perspective, besides the enrollment and the attendance and those things, are going to be the 3 through 8 tests. Now, as you're aware, the 3 through 8 test information is embargoed. And until the state releases that publicly, there's no information there. So you'll see blanks or NAs when it comes to that. We also then turn to, we have a fiscal accountability supplement. Virtually all of that comes from the state education department, and there's a year lag in it. So when you look at it, you'll see we're missing 15, 16 data. In January of 19, we'll get that data. So when that data comes in, we replace and add the next year in. Some of the information in the financial piece about the special education part, the state stopped reporting certain things. So if you look at that, you'll see, well, why haven't we gotten any state data the last 3 years on that type of stuff? Well, the state has stopped reporting it. So more than likely, by the conclusion of this year, we'll wipe that out because they don't report it anymore. So we'll put it only the way that we have it. We also have facts and figures from transportation. Facts and figures from facilities and operations, and we have food service in there as well. So what we do have, which you can see now, is a 3-year comparison. We are including, well, we're saying it's up to 18-19. It ended in June of last year. And you can see that the stats in there show the last couple of years by the months. It's kind of interesting that the years crest and fall almost the same as we go through. February being the month that has the least, and September being the month that has the most.
And you said you're going to add in, because I see September doesn't have 2018. You're going to
Right.
add that in
So,
the next one?
So by the middle of October, when you pull that up and you see September, there'll be 3 bars in there.
Okay.
So you'll see, and we just keep adding. So that kind of comparison, we just keep adding the new data in. But we actually have, and I think you'll see it here. See how this is blank? Okay, so that's September, October, right away, well, through June. So it's percents by grade level. We won't have any of that until the end of September. So by mid-October, we'll have our first reportings on that information. If you notice too, and I just want to point out to the board, on each of these sheets, we reference where the data comes from. Because if you don't write this stuff down, you're not going to, you, me, whoever is not going to remember where it comes from. This particular data comes from Infinite Campus. Some of it comes from the New York State report cards. Some of it comes straight from the New York State Education Department. So we try to reference it as we go through it. Again, our enrollment numbers, they're blank for now, but I do have the older dashboard attached to it. If Dr. Robinson want to look at it later, show it to you, you can see that last year's data, because we have both regular ed and special ed by month in there. Of course, we just started this year, so there's no information. Same thing with the portal. The portal information goes up until June 30th. Then there's a giant cleaning, and any parent who doesn't have kids in the system anymore, like if you had a senior graduate and you have no more, you're gone. And don't try to log. I used to do it too. Don't try to log in because you can't. It tells you you're not valid anymore, so you can't log in. So that goes out, and then all the new data stats start on July 1st. And so we'll be populating that. But again, if you looked at the old dashboard from last year, you'd see it month by month. High school, there is some high school information up here. This number up here, the 17-18 number, is unofficial because we have to have state confirmation. So, but we're putting it there for the purposes of letting you see that. And then that just shows you for the last 3 years the number of completers, the number of Regents diplomas, and the percent of Regents diplomas, Regents with honors, and the percents for that, so on and so forth. By the way, if you're wondering why Regents with honors has like 3 and 1 and that, it's a very old designation. There's a few kids that qualify for the number of the types of courses that they took in there. So there still are a few kids that usually a handful a year that earn some of those.
Which one?
The Regents with honors. I refer to as an older designation. That used to be the designation. That was like at the top. You used to get a Regents and you used to get a Regents with honors.
When did they change that?
When they started adding the advanced Regents and the advanced Regents with honors, which would be like mid-2005-ish, 2006, somewhere in there. But they still have some of those old categories there that you could still get accredited or get a diploma in. And then the newer one is the Regents with CTE. That's becoming a newer, it's kind of a newer one that's there. Students have to take certain courses in career and technical education. Some are offered at the vocational center. Some Shen courses are tagged with CTE. So that any combination of that can give them a Regents diploma that has a CTE endorsement. The non-completers, we did not put that data in because we haven't confirmed it, and unlike the graduation data, you saw everybody walk across the stage, so you kind of got a feel for how many there were there. So we put unofficial numbers in there. We won't put the non-completers in until we get the verification from the state on that information. You can see that they tend to run closer in numbers. The school districts had between 25 and 30 students over, if you count all 4 grade levels in the high school. Yes?
It's four-year cohorts?
There's 2. There's those that drop out in 12th grade, which is the 4-year cohort, if you will, and then the other one is just all of the grade levels together. But the graduation rate and all that's based on the cohort, which is the kids being together for 4 years.
So kids who take more than 4 years just don't count as part of the completers?
Well, they count if they're like, for example, they're August grads, and the August grads are part of the completer list. And that's part of the reason why that's still blank, because as you know, summer school just finished a month ago. Post-secondary plans, this is all self-reported information that comes from school districts to the state. You'll notice that the numbers for 4-year college and 2-year college, for the most part, run pretty consistently.
One comment on that? So, we went from 62% to 67%.
Right.
And one of the things we have been doing is emphasizing counseling. Last year's seniors were probably the ones that had an ambiance all through middle school, so unlike the previous years where it was sort of rushed and it was new, they had the opportunity to really use the systems as well as, I think, a more robust counseling program. So to me, that is significant, going from 5%.
Well, I would tell you to look at it for a three, again, you got to do a minimum of a 3-year trend, and also add your 2- and 4-year numbers together and see what your percents are.
Yeah.
Because what you're seeing is a shifting,
Yeah.
and some of that has to do with economics as well.
I mean, but it's pretty consistent when you look at college
Yeah, when you look at
completes.
the 2- and 4-year numbers and you add them together, which is kind of looking at the numbers of 3s and 4s, level 3s or 4s on the state test.
It's about 85.
Numbers are pretty much where they've been over a period of time. And the numbers to the other areas are, I mean, I've been looking at this data for 25 years. The numbers are pretty, the percents are pretty standard. They're pretty close to where they've been.
This data obviously gives us a snapshot of the degree of success, shall we say, of our students at the point when they complete their formal training. I know it's not required, but for me, even more meaningful data would be those students that complete the 4 years of college, the 2 years of college and so forth. And I don't know how we capture that data, but typically I think for a community 2-year college is like 50% of the kids in the general population can be expected to graduate.
Actually, it's even lower.
And for 4-year college, perhaps it's even higher. But there's like a third of the kids who do not complete. How are we doing relative to, other schools that are generally share our characteristic? How are we doing overall? If our kids are getting into school but they're not graduating, that doesn't feel so good.
Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to get those statistics, and the state's made some efforts for the state universities, but that's only a portion.
Right.
Some of the kids go to private colleges, some of the kids go out of state, so it's difficult to get it. I do know when I was a high school principal, the SUNYs used to send me a letter if a kid from our school was graduating in May. I'd say, thank you for sending me, Deanna Stevenson, she's now graduating with a 4-year degree. They don't tell you the ones from your school that didn't graduate, but they do tell you the ones who did. So it's there really isn't any way to catch it.
But also, not only that, Gary, but if they don't finish, it's not always necessarily because they weren't successful academically. It could be a financial thing as well. So really to say, well, whether they were successful or not may not be always
Bob, do
as
you have,
accurate either.
is one of the slides showing where this data lives?
This comes from
No,
New York State.
where do we house it now? So the point is, we have 57 slides, and we're not going to do 57 slides. So the
Well,
point
this
is,
is all, it's all connected to the dashboard. So if you go to the district
yeah, that's
website,
exactly. So,
you go to About Us,
Yep.
the About
so
Us.
you don't have, but you don't have that as one of your links there.
Yeah, that's.
No, I mean, when the website, I thought you had 3 things. I thought one of them was this actual website link.
Oh, well, if we do it,
No, I mean, that's,
yeah, I mean, if you go to you go to shennet.org and there's the border across the top and it
Yep.
says About Us. If you click on About Us,
Yep.
over to the right-hand side, it's alphabetical and it says Dashboard.
and do we have prior year's dashboard at that
We
site?
usually only put one up at a time because the data usually is 3 to 5 years worth of information. So we usually only put up one dashboard at a time, just because I think it would be confusing otherwise. But like you can see here, we've got 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16. When we can get 5 years of data, we do that. So when we do 18, 19, we'll drop 13, 14 off.
So Bob, can you go back up to your initial slides where you had a list of the data sets? So for the purpose of the board, obviously there's a lot of data sets there, data points, and one was an awareness piece. I think that's the most important piece. So you as a board member, because I know we come in and we have presentations and we talk about process and people, and deliberately don't necessarily go deep into the data points because unless you really have the time to spend to it, it can, quite frankly, just lend to misinterpretations of things. However, the dashboard is just what it is. It's driving down the street, you look at your fuel gauge and you see, okay, I got a quarter tank. You're not going to say, is it X percentage comparison to what? You just know you need to get gasoline. And so it gives you some indication of trends and trend lines and where we're going and those kind of things. So that's, this piece is important. So one, want to remind people of the wide variety of data points, but two, if they're looking at this list, if there's a particular data point that a board member wants Bob to go to and look into a little closer tonight, we can. But you having access to this information gives you that opportunity to really go into it, because a lot of information is collected by us as a system. And at some point in the future, another data view that we want to show, and think about this, Bob, how we could do is also, we'll come back and show all the various workbooks. Again, we're not going to go into hundreds of them, so we won't go through them, but just so the board is also aware of the various workbooks that we collect through Tableau and the what's that word?
Visualization.
Yeah, that word, of these workbooks. Again, so that the board knows, as a member for governing board, that we look at a lot of data points to try to help make decisions or give some sense of where we're going. So that's something else I want to share with you as a system, because we won't spend a lot of time ever in a board meeting doing this, because it's a lot of time to really have that appreciation of it. However, I think as a board, it's great for you to know that we look at a lot of different data points to eliminate what we think we should be doing as a system. Does that make some sense? So before Mr. Mayor conclude, are there any, looking at this list, or any one that draw interest that people say, hey, can we spend a couple minutes looking at that?
No, go ahead.
When it comes to the elementary results, we have our EDK program. If you look at the performance of our elementary schools as a whole, general population, they've performed very strongly. But I wonder if we break out that EDK cohort, compare how they stacked up against our general population at the time they entered kindergarten, as opposed to when they entered first grade. Have they made up some of the ground? Do we follow them longitudinally so that we know whether they continue to hold their own, or lose ground? Because oftentimes special programs have an initial gain, and unless you follow them with supports and so forth, they go right back down to where they were. So, I would like to have the affirmation that what we do and how we spend our time and resources is actually successful. It's not just something we do, but we're actually doing something that's worthwhile for our kids. And the larger data does not provide that assurance.
So we have done that at different points.
Yeah, we did it I think 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
About 3 years ago, I think we did that. We did a poll on the kids that had been in EDK and what their scores had been in 3rd grade. And if we went out far enough, we could identify that we go out far enough. But I'll go look. I've got a report on that I wrote on that a couple of years ago, and I'll try to find that and see if I can rerun it just to see if I can get similar types of numbers.
And also the kids that are not EDK and how they're tracking when they go into first grade, especially with the change of reading requirements. There was a change from kindergarten to first grade, and so how are they doing?
I mean, there are tons and tons of variables.
Right. But that was a recent change, so.
Actually, well, we actually shift back to the benchmark, so that,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's just 1 year?
Yeah, so that wouldn't necessarily have a huge impact. But I know exactly what you're talking about. So the longitudinal analysis, I think once we get into more of this, you'll see it. And one of the things that we will try to do moving forward more is how could I say it? Strategic sound like the wrong word. But on a periodic basis, pull out certain, they're all interested in data point, but certain data points that I think almost back to Mr. DeLallo's point, that tracks with certain program designs in terms of, to see, because we do a lot of program review, program evaluation, and Dr. Wood has tons and tons of conversation with people about how well we're doing, and yes, these data sets are large, big picture data sets, graduation rates, regions performance, those kind of things, big picture sets. We do a lot of subgroup breakdown data points in terms of how different subgroups of categories of kids are performing on certain measures to try to see if we're, for instance, one of the things we focus on, the achievement gap between based upon race, based upon poverty. Are we, in fact, shrinking that achievement gap? And based upon certain measures, we are. And so again, as we look at those program points, if we're doing X, are we getting Y results, so to speak? So you'll see and hear more. However, I'm going to caution that we won't have, because this is pretty overwhelming and quite frankly will clog up a lot of time, is to do that versus if we point you towards where certain information set exists that's publicly viewed. Some of the things are not publicly viewed. It'd be great for you. But the big point of this for you as a board to know that we analyze a lot of data to turn into information to drive decision making. So I think that's what we're trying to highlight tonight was that piece of it. Similar to when you see Dr. Wood come forward in a second, she won't go through all the pages on Inside Shen, but just kind of show you some of the things that we do capture for our staff. So tonight was more of that awareness piece than anything else.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob.
And now you have access, Bob, these links are live, so they don't change.
Right.
So once you have those links, you can save them in your favorites or whatever for those people who wants to sit up at night and go through those. Good luck, Mrs. Hoffman.
I was just going to say, it'll be. Don't call me later.
Don't call me. So as Dr. Robinson noted, this presentation is not to share everything that we have listed on Inside Shen. Inside Shen is our internal website. We have the district website, which is our forward-facing website we use it as employees of the district, but it's really for our external public to make sure that they can access our resources. And what we continually were finding over the last couple of years is we were sending out too many things as emails with attachments. Here's a list of resources you should have in your classroom. Here are a list of links that will help you with your ability to be culturally responsive in the classroom. And in order to, when you are ready to go through that, you are sorting through email after email. It is incumbent on you to remember who sent it and where it's located, in addition to the fact that it takes up a tremendous amount of server space over time when you're sending like these attachments, regardless of how big they are, to, in some cases, 1,700 people, right? You are replicating that over. So really, working with Kelly DeFisciani, our public information officer, who spent a lot of time thinking about what could this platform look like and how can we make sure that it's organized in a way that people can start to count on where they can find certain pieces of information. So this is, I will say this is a project that will never be done, but we continue to build it out, and it has come a long way in the last year. And I will show you just a few highlights. So this is the home page that you get to. And if you're wondering how staff members can access it, it is an icon on the desktop. If you're in our internal domain, you'll see a little Inside Shen icon on the desktop. And there are a couple of other ways that you can get there as well. And people find their preference to get there. The first place I would start is under elementary instruction, because this was really an amazing amount of work done. We would sometimes struggle to even have teachers understand what are all the materials that you should be having in your classroom, particularly if you're an elementary teacher where you're teaching multiple grade levels and subjects, because you'll notice we have quite a few. And so Julie Burnett, and unfortunately, if this were on your device or I was able to manipulate it a little bit better, you could blow it up, but you'll see that for every single subject area, here are the materials that we supply you. These become the backbone of what you instruct on, and then we have hyperlinks in here. And I want to give credit to Julie Burnett, our elementary instructional coach, along with working with Kathleen Strangis and Michelle Gabri-Huba, who put all of this together to make it an easy access resource for our teachers, particularly helpful when they're switching grade levels, very helpful for special education co-teachers who might be pushing into second grade for the first time, thinking about how do I wrap my head around the materials that I'm going to be needing. Let's see, other places that I think are worthy taking a look at. Under professional development.
So can you do one thing?
Yes.
Before we go to specifics, can you just walk down each of those areas so the board could get a good sense of all the different areas before we go into the...
Yeah, absolutely. So we start with our district homepage where we have our goals, kind of big picture topics. We then go to curriculum and instruction assessment homepage, which was the place where come Superintendent's Conference Day, I was posting the agenda when I'm sending out emails to list Shen about, Superintendent's Conference Day is coming, I'm not sending any more an attachment with that agenda. I'm sending them the link to Inside Shen so that they know where to go back and find it on their own. Let's see, so this is the page that I tend to manage. We have a special education page, all the things that you would expect under curriculum and instruction. We then go into human resources, where there are a number of resources. In fact, we open up employee resources, and I'll show you one thing that has been a labor of love, but has been very useful, is having a page under human resources for all of our APPR plans, our annual professional performance review plans. And these are the documents associated with them. So if you are a teacher being evaluated under APPR 3012D, these are the materials that will be of use to you. If you're a related service provider, you'll remember we brought a new related service provider plan a year ago, right down to a professional development plan for related service providers, and we had one last year. We've updated it for this year. Our principals, our administrators, we find this is useful for us. Way I'm thinking, all right, it's time to start notifying the principals of their observation cycle, and we're going to, all right, so where do we keep this document, and how do we make sure we're always referencing the most up-to-date plans? Business and operations. You can find out here on what cycle are you being paid. How do you log into WinCap, which is our finance software, where you can log into, put in for attendance, days that you're going to be out, or change information related to health insurance. Who are the people that you need to contact in these various departments? Going down to data management and information services, which clearly we're working on building out still. IMS has a page here. Policy and community development. Where do you find the fundraising forms? How do you access the filters? And here's another thing. If you notice, Mrs. Carmen has she has linked to the board policy. What you don't want to do is start creating replicas of things, because when you change the original, right, when we present a new policy to the board, you end up with varied language that's out there in circulation. So more and more we try to link directly to the original documents. Under professional development, teachers can go here to find all sorts of things, the direct link to the SIL website. One thing I'll draw your attention to is our teacher induction program. We talk a lot about, oh, that's something we do for year 1 teachers. Oh, that's something that we do for teachers who are new to district in year 2. The more we talked about it, the more I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what are we doing with our year 3 folks? It's great. Anna Sugarman, our professional development coordinator, outlined it. And it is posted here.
Go ahead, and I'll ask a question.
And then there's a more detailed link for if you're a year 1 teacher, a year 2 teacher. Another thing. Oh, yeah.
I had a communication with Bob, and he mentioned something about mentors. I mentioned something about mentors. Bob had no idea what I was talking about. When I mentioned it, it was kind of a quizzical look on Dr. Robinson's face as well. So I'm saying, all right, I'm out of step with what's going on in the district. We no longer have a mentor-mentee. We do.
Pretty expensive. Now we have 4 years of it.
Right, we have it's actually a 2-tier system. If you've already come in, having had a mentor, and you have your professional certification, you don't require a formal mentor from the state.
Okay.
And they go in the track that I just had highlighted, the new to Shen. You may have experience, but we need to help you adjust to coming into Shenendehowa. But we also hire many people who need this for their professional certification, and also are just getting up on their feet as professionals, and they enter the formal mentor-mentee program.
It's under HR.
And we're very careful about who we make mentors, because that could make all the difference.
Yes.
Do we, in our HR, is there a mention about the induction piece that HR does?
It's under professional
So
development.
can you just click on that? Where's that, Joe?
Are we talking new teacher induction?
No, the induction piece that we're doing, our onboarding process, that's not on here yet. Okay. The only reason I'm saying that, we have an onboarding process too for new employees that's complementary to this kind of thing. Okay, you keep going.
And the question we are routinely asked every time, we are very excited, like, we have
finally documented this process for all to see. Dr. Robinson's first question for all of us, can you guess what it is now? Where is it on Inside Shen? Right? Because we talk constantly about how do we make sure that everybody can see the work and can count on where to go back to find the information. And also, it helps us to document our work in the event that any one of us goes someplace else or has an illness or something. You know, the materials are there, and it doesn't become so person-specific. One thing I use all the time, which you may not even consider, is the logo and the mascot, the seal, the letterhead. It's right here under the public information page.
Go back up one, go back up again. So we also do, Dr. Shannon posts a lot of videos. We have our own YouTube channel that people access to post different video training pieces as well. So a lot of neat things happening, and obviously you see all the different social media pieces that we have. What's the last one at the bottom?
Question.
And then we do things like various committees that we have in the school district, which some of those things right now live in a Google platform that's out there. Board saw the committee workshop piece. At some point, all those things will also live here. So as we update in one venue, we can connect back to another venue. So again, similar to Mr. Millia's presentation, we have stuff that we could be here for hours and hours talking about, but just for awareness. So again, you as a governing body, you know, so when you sit here and you say, I wonder if, more like whatever you wonder, we're probably doing, have done, and will continue to do. But it just give you a good sense of, as an organization, because you can see some stuff and say we're a good district, but really what evidence, so to speak, that you have seen. So I think this just gives you some indication of that. And our bottom line is, and I think Dr. Wood's point is a great point to kind of end this conversation with. At the end of the day, I used to kind of joke when I was at Mahonesa because we had these slide in and out name things. And so, you know, people are like, well, you don't have to replace the plaque, you just slide your name out. Almost kind of like Mr. DeLallo's comment about teachers. And I always I'm always anxious as a leader for organization to think about, are we really prepared for the possibility of key members of the organization no longer being with the organization? Are we really prepared for that? And if the question is maybe not, that's a bad answer. The question is absolutely we are, and we could deal with any bumps in the road, because at the end of the day, consistency and providing a quality experience is our ultimate goal. And so with that is one, providing resource to help people do their jobs every day, and two, to having things documented so that we know we can replicate the efforts over and over. We're not lucky, we're leading. You know, we don't want to get lucky and do it one time and cross our fingers and hope we can do it again. We want to be able to say we can lead effectively and do this all the time. And so Inside Shen is just one of many ways we're trying to capture the information. I know, for instance, Mrs. Shen is working on an initiative right now where almost everything that she does through communication is being hyperlinked to the exact documents, to the things of that nature. That's what technology allows us to do. Before, we had filing cabinets with different labels on them, and you hope that you get to the right cabinet, the right files, and people label it accordingly. But now we can be able to link and access information and share information and keep information current all the time. And so again, only for you as a board member, we start a new year, a peace of mind, if nothing else. If you don't walk out with nothing else other than peace of mind, and know that there's a lot of processes in place to address many things, and to focus on documenting what we do, particularly those critical things that we do, and those critical things that staff members need to be able to access on a fly. And the beautiful thing about this, they can access it anywhere with their login. So you don't have to be in your classroom. You could be, oh, I'm at home. Oh my God, what's that thing? You can find it on Inside Shen. That's where we really want to get to that point, that if it's worthwhile, it should be here. And we're moving certainly more towards it. So kudos to a lot of folks to do it, and we don't want it to be overwhelming, that it becomes too convoluted for people to find information, versus trying to structure in a way that is very intuitive, if you will. So more to come. So thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Bob, for tonight. Tonight was to give that to you as a board, so you know that we have some folks that's doing a lot of work all the time to make this place actually a great system for our kids. So thank you.
So we will be, can we access this as a board?
Right now,
member?
it's for staff members.
So what is the cultural proficiency one?
This is some specific stuff that we do with, some rubrics that we use with our, so you may have seen the parent one, with PTA. None of this stuff is top secret documents.
Right.
Because many stuff we use out there, in there, is just, we're trying to capture stuff that we want staff to be able to have access to at any given time. So many of these things, one of the things, the only reason why we limit it to staff access is because there are certain things that are unique only to certain staff members, but it's not because it's secret information, so to speak. Just trying to make sure that we can manage the process versus having an open space, which could become problematic or when you have anything in an open venue. So, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, we'll turn to consent items. First one is treasurer's reports. Can I have a motion to bring this to the table? Deanna first, Christina second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor? Okay, 6 for 6. Minutes, we're going to have to break them out too because I was not at the first meeting, so a motion to bring August 7 minutes to the floor. Christina first. Gary second. Any comments or questions? And I will not be on the vote. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Let's go to August 28th. Motion to bring this to the floor. Goes to first. Any seconds? Naomi, any comments or questions? If not, all in favor? Okay. Action items, business items. We have an appointment for an audit committee member. My understanding that one of our board members recommended this person, and it worked out. Motion on the audit committee member. Deanna first, Gary second. Any comments or questions?
I just wanted to share, I wasn't sure if everybody fully understood this committee, the purpose of it. I'm sure you do, but just give me just a few minutes. It's a committee that's required by New York State law. It was enacted back in 2006. It's a committee that has to have a minimum of 3 members. They cannot be district employees, the 3 members. Right now, I'm a member as the board, but the entire committee could be the board, but right now we have 1 member, myself, and each year, we can change it up. And the members have to be voted on by you, and that committee only reports to the board, essentially. So I didn't really quite know if everybody understood the full capacity of what that committee does. It oversees all of the reviews that are done in the district, whether it's claims, internal, external audit. I think it's sort of the gatekeeper, the watchdog, reporting back. I didn't know if the committee knew, but Mike Walsh is the other member on the committee. Mike Walsh is the current president, I believe CEO of NISTIC, and he has over 30 years. I don't know really how long he's been on the board, but he's has a wealth of knowledge. He worked for KPMG. He has an MBA and a BS. But like I said, he's currently working for a non-for-profit that also does quite a few things for the district. And Lauren would be that 3rd member. And she presented very well during our interview, and I'm excited that she's now part of the team of 3. But I just wanted to make sure that I wanted to share that with the board.
Any other comments? If not, all in favor? Okay. Let's combine 2 and 3, 2 contracts, one for school psychology training support and the other for IMS Soundtrap. Can I get a motion? Christina, second. Gusta, any comments or questions on both of these? If not, all in favor? 4th one, emergency pesticide resolution. Can I get a motion on this one? Gary first, Deanna second. Any comments or questions?
I did have a question. Last year, or whatever it was, when we were talking about the disposition and utilization of the land that was ultimately sold to the town, one of the things I was hoping for was that when that went over, that we'd get some more athletic fields, and the town was not receptive to that at all. But I was sort of assured in-house that we had an adequate number of fields, and that we had a restoration program and rotation program and so forth that was in effect that would keep us on top of things. And now it sounds like, because, with the pesticide thing, that maybe we've got to revise that estimate, and we've got to go back and do a rotation and rejuvenation plan that was not the one that was in effect, because they're saying now we have weeds and so forth that are
Well,
coming
no,
up.
it's our annual, so the state changed the laws a while back where people used to use a wide variety of pesticides and insect killers and things of that nature. And now so basically the state says before you have carte blanche to do whatever, you have to go through a process, and the process is coming to the board. And so this is more for, the term says emergency, I would say more strategic use of pesticide versus just a wild rampant use of pesticides. So this actually doesn't necessarily have, it's related to fields, but it has nothing to do with our field rotation plan.
Specifically mentioned it in the
Yeah,
material that was
because
given to us.
as we look to rotate fields, we obviously want to rotate and rehab the fields that's having the most difficulty. And typically it's the one that we start having a lot of crabgrass and things of that nature. And so that's why I say it's related, but it's not one, that's not driving our rotation plan. But it's related to that. Overall, we have budgeted every year now. We're in a cycle now that we budget to rotate, get a field offline, get a field online. And just giving an example of that, the field behind High School West, it may not make some sense to some folks, used to be Junior Plainsman. The field at Shattuckon that was widely, grossly underutilized behind Shattuckon, but in the wooded area that was sold, was grossly underutilized because it was largely for elementary programs. And so we thought that, okay, let's rehab that somewhat, treat it, do otherwise. So now the Junior Plainsman program is there, which now creates a situation that we can take off a field on campus offline and always have access to another field. So I would say right now our fields overall are in the best conditions because we have a rotation cycle. And we have to be diligent about that because we get a lot of use from our athletic facilities. So that's why this emergent application is important. And we're very thoughtful about how we use pesticides, largely because we sit on a high water table as a system. And so, yeah, exactly. So we have to think about that all the time in terms of how we use. So the board approval is to say apply, but apply with tremendous diligence. It's probably the best way I kind of describe this piece of it, and versus just, hey, bringing the guys in, bring True Green in every month, and they just do whatever we do. We don't do that. There used to be once upon a time places do just contract with a company, and they come in, but this is very thoughtful, very strategic about when and where we use it to maintain, but also to help our rotation cycles last longer as well. Okay, does that make some sense?
Yep.
Yes, it does.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor for item 4? Okay. Item 5, scholarship and local grant donations. A motion on this one. Christina
With
first.
gratitude.
Gratitude. Second motion. Deanna, any comments or questions?
I'm just curious, what is it for? Because I saw it was from the Society of Chemical Industry to high school youth. I'm curious what they were using it, but what was it targeted or earmarked for?
I have to get back to you with that one.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? All in favor, number 5? Okay. And number 6, nomination of NISBA voting delegate. Gary is our primary delegate. The last 2 years, I've been the alternate. I defaulted this year, but if anybody wants to assume the alternate. What is key about the NISBA convention is that both Dr. Robinson and Dr. Wood will be, my understanding, you're presenting Saturday morning.
I'm presenting Thursday, Saturday.
Oh, okay.
A few times.
Okay. All right.
It's going to feel like work to me.
Okay, okay. But any, can I get a motion on the nomination?
Assuming Mr. Dyer will accept it.
Nominate myself?
Have you accepted?
Yeah, I'll accept it.
Okay. Naomi first, Christina second on the motion. Any other comments or questions?
You're the alternate, right?
Yeah, right, we're gonna declare
Unless
that.
somebody wants to do it.
Okay.
I'll be the alternate, maybe next year. Someone else can do it. All in favor? Okay. And let's go to action item B, students accepting special education placements.
Good evening. I have the recommendations from the preschool and the school age committee for 18-19 so far.
Can I get a motion to vote on this? Deanna first, Christina second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor? Thank you very much. And then approval of staffing recommendations, next one.
Good evening. I just want to highlight that we have one of our new teachers here tonight. Scott Smith is going to be joining Tasago in third grade because Katie Chazinski had moved to the middle school. So Scott, just want to stand up for a minute? Great, so welcome.
Welcome.
He'll be starting in about 25 days. We're going to see if we can steal him a little bit early from the district he was in. And we have one retirement this time. Catherine Conroy is retiring from food service after 11 years in the district.
Can I get a motion on this one? Gusto first, Naomi second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor? Okay. That concludes our business portion. Do we have any members of the public who wants to speak? We have someone coming up. Go ahead, come on up.
Hello, everybody. Do I get my form too?
You can see.
Hi, my name is Brenda Gibbs, and I'm stopping by to raise awareness for a parent group that I'm forming with a bunch of other parents to help support the parents in the district with children with disabilities. As I'm sure you all are aware, it's not an easy position to be in, to be a parent of a child with disability. I think a lot of the general education parents don't understand that we often find ourselves in a position where we're negotiating on a year-to-year basis for services and things. And the object of forming this group is help bring the parents together, see what we can do together positively as a group, potentially bring in some speakers, do some training programs. Maybe down the road we might form some public comment, in a positive way. But again, it's for the parents. The parents are going to be deciding how we're going to use this, how we're going to go forward. And to kick it off, I've got two events that are planned. The first is on September 16th, and it starts at 12:30 or thereabouts. We're going to be playing some documentary videos. These are both by Dr. Richard Lavoie. I actually had advertised this as him being a national expert, but actually he's an international expert in special education issues. And these are videos to raise awareness and understanding of the difficulties of children with special needs in the classroom. I did find, I watched both of these, obviously. The first one is a simulation of how it feels to be a student in the classroom. And what it does is it puts a bunch of adults in situations that make them feel like a student with a disability, so that it can raise empathy and awareness. When I watched this, I found it to really be a life-changing, informing experience. You might think that you understand, but you could learn a lot more from this if you come and watch the video. Sure. Now, Dr. Lavoie, I would love if we could actually have him here in person, but maybe the group will do that someday, but there's conference fees and other expenses. So the best we can do right now is to show the video and help raise some discussions. The other video we've got is on motivation issues, and there's a big misconception that children with disabilities aren't motivated sometimes, and that various motivations like rewards and things, and if children don't respond to that, then they're just not motivated children. Dr. Lavoie breaks some of those myths and explains, how we can view this differently. So again, these are two kickoff events. The first is these documentary videos. The second, we're actually having a parents group meeting on the 19th from 6:30 to 8:30. And at that meeting, it's open to any parent in the district who has a child with a disability, and we're going to just sit down and discuss what it is we can do together. The first event is open to the public generally with the documentary videos. I'm hoping that we'll we'll get educators, school administrators, anybody who works with kids with disabilities to come and learn from the videos. The second event on the 19th is really just for the parents, because it's just for us to get together and talk and see what we can do together to help each other out, because it really is a difficult job being a parent of a child with disability, and it gets frustrating at times too. So let's see what we can do together. And so that's why I'm here tonight, is to raise awareness of these two events and the group that is forming, so that we can get more parents involved. All right? And maybe someday we'll come talk to you, but right now we're just really in an organizational phase to get together and see what we can do together. So thank you very much for allowing me to come
Thank you,
speak.
Brenda.
I
Thank you,
appreciate
Brenda.
it. All right, thanks.
It's good to put a face with the name.
I see no one else from the,
One more thing. I just want
do you want to go ahead with the?
Oh, no, can I do that?
Sure.
Just one more thing I meant to mention before when I was talking to Dr. Robinson about this, and I'm sorry, one second. But you know how we do the walkthrough in the beginning of the year? We were discussing perhaps doing another walkthrough. We could further discuss that mid-year, maybe after the holidays, how are things going, just to check in, right? So we can talk more about that, but put it on the table for just a thought. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, let's jump into a quick review of policy. So tomorrow we kick off our first policy meeting. We're going to focus on school community relations and public participation. That will roll through the October meeting, and then November, if it's on track, will be adopted. Then we go to a series of agenda items, and I think this is available to the public as well, if they, as you see up there. So we'll start with purple, and then the next month we go into yellow, and it just kind of rolls through over a period of 2 or 3 months. Last item, I just want to point out to the board members, I will not be at the next meeting. I have a situation with work that's come up that probably creates more of an opportunity to be more involved in other meetings as well as other community and committee events. So I want to take advantage of that. So I look forward to a repeat of what we saw in the first meeting in August. I think you'll do very well. I saw that meeting on videotape, did a great job. Everything seemed to flow through. So I think in good hands. But if anybody is not going to be here at the next meeting, let me know, because that might be a reason to change, but I don't think that'll be the case. All right, that's it for me. Motion to adjourn. Naomi first. Just a second. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Scott.